Tech Career and Employment Resources. I am Mia Kennedy, and co-hosting with me is Stephanie Rowlands. Today's STEM highlight has been created in honor of Earth Day. So what better way to honor Earth Day than to learn about geology related opportunities, whether it's college courses, clubs, organizations, college majors, or careers available to you. This session will be recorded. Now, let's take a moment to get to know each of our panelists for this session. Ms. Gretchen Miller earned her bachelor's degree in geological sciences from the State University of New York at Buffalo in 1995 and her master's degree in earth and planetary sciences from Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri in 1997. After graduate school, she moved to Raleigh, where she started as a hydrogeologist with a private environmental consulting firm. She earned her North Carolina geology license and was planning a long career as a hydrogeologist until she saw an advertisement for a geology instructor position at Wake Tech. She began her career at Wake Tech in 2003 as an adjunct, and then after a few weeks of teaching the course, she was hooked. And so following the following semester, she was hired to teach full-time in geology. Next, we have Mr. Cameron Yance. He is a college recruiter for the College of Natural Resources at NC State. He has 5 years of experience in higher education. After graduating from NC State in 2015 with a BA in communication, Mr. Yance worked as an admission counselor in the undergraduate admission office at NC State. Cameron specializes in relationship management, communication procedures, and event planning to help prospective students learn more about College of Natural Resources programs and to become better all-around environmental stewards. Next, we have Dr. Drew Pilette. Dr. Pilette is a research geologist with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and studies the Earth using satellite remote sensing for environmental and human health. Recent topics include high-resolution land cover mapping, GIS for PFAS chemicals, GIS for animal feeding and operations, and ecosystem goods and services to quantify nature's benefits for sustainable decision making. Outside of his work, he explores remote places with his wife and son, travels on bikes and kayaks, and plays percussion instruments in groups and recordings. And finally, we have Miss Emily Herman. Ms. Herman is a junior at NC State University, double majoring, in marine sciences and geology. She became interested in marine sciences after interning with the Marine and Earth Science Department at NC State 2 summers ago. In her spare time, she loves hiking with her dog Jasmine, rock climbing, and camping. Wow, what a phenomenal panel. So for the moment we've all been waiting for, we'll hear from our panelists. We'll get started with a few questions, and participants, please feel free to use the chat box or open your mics to ask our panelists questions. So for our panelists, since today is Earth Day, what does Earth Day mean to you? And anyone can answer.
Well, I'll jump in. To me, Earth Day is so important because geology is so important to our daily lives, and most people don't realize it. Like, modern society just wouldn't be here without geology, and Earth Day is a nice day to just celebrate everything that the Earth gives to us so we can learn about it and appreciate it.
I'll follow that up. And hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. Thank you so much for having us as a part of this panel. I'll echo the idea, of course, that Earth Day is exactly that, a celebration for me. It's very exciting every year, not only Earth Day, but of course, April as Earth Month, particularly here in North Carolina, here in the South. Just being outside during this month is enough to celebrate alone, with all the beautiful greenery and the weather warming up. Maybe not so much the pollen, as we all are familiar with, but of course it is just wonderful to celebrate everything that the Earth has to offer us. And in addition to that, not only on Earth Day but throughout the month, I always challenge myself to follow a variety of different resources online where you can try to do a small thing each day, just to protect the environment in some way. Maybe it's trying composting for a day. Maybe it's making sure to turn off all the lights and electronics before you leave your house or apartment. Little things like that, just to make sure that you're doing your small part as a citizen of this planet to protect our Earth for future generations. So for me, it's a celebration and obviously a call to action at the same time.
Hi, Drew Pyland here. Earth Day is my most significant holiday. It's about living sustainably on the planet, which we are not doing. And there's 8 billion of us in one planet, and that's why I put this Earthrise photo up here. You can see it, and we have a biosphere, an atmosphere, hydrosphere. All of these are impacted by human activities. And on geology, I've got this book. I'll put it in the chat. I don't know, I can't really show it. It's called Timefulness, How Thinking Like a Geologist Can Help Save the World. That's a real thing, because so much of our society is driven by 2, 4, 6-year political cycles, funding cycles, but the processes that provide us with a healthy environment for survival are on scales of hundreds, thousands, millions of years. And if we don't recognize those, we will continue to have big problems. Thanks.
I can go next. Earth Day for me, I feel like I try to incorporate pretty much every day, whether it's just getting outside and reading a book, picking up trash with, some of my friends, like going to Johnson Lake or, kind of local place. I think it's kind of just letting people know, like, what we can do to make it better, whether it's cycling whenever you can, or trying to compost if that's available to you. It's kind of just little things you can do just to kind of make your environment better around you. It doesn't have to be something massive every day or once a year. So.
Thank you. Those are all great responses.
Yes. Thank you, guys. All righty. So our next question, this is for all of our panelists. So what inspired you to pursue a degree in this field or major in this field? And we'll start with Professor Miller.
Well, I have always enjoyed the outdoors. My first camping trip, I was only 9 months old. My parents brought me outside a lot. I played in the dirt a lot. I started my first rock collection when I was 3. So I think it was sort of inevitable that I would at least pursue a science. But originally, geology attracted me because I was interested in other planets. I was really interested in planetary geology and studying Mars. Few zigs and zags later, I fell in love with the Earth and water as my actual career path. But the thing that got me started was learning about other planets in the solar system.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed playing in the dirt when you were little. All righty. Dr. Pilot, how about you?
I grew up in Puget Sound in Washington State, surrounded by mountains, volcanoes, the sea, forests, Boy Scout, geology. And I love what you said about planetary part. I'm in the American Geophysical Union. We have these amazing meetings, and everything from solar physics to the Earth's magnetosphere to black smoker pipes on the mid-ocean ridge. It's just a fascinating field. It's highly integrative. So we think of geologists as just banging on rocks, but really, to be a geologist, you have to understand so many different fields, and just endlessly fascinating to me.
Thank you. And Miss Emily?
Yeah, so I actually, took a geology class at Wake Tech, and that's kind of how I first got into it. I took just a basic kind of 101 class, and I was like, hey, this is really cool. And I always knew that I wanted to do something with science. So I originally started out majoring in environmental science, and then I took geology, and I was like, hey, this is really neat. Found out about the internship program that Wake Tech was offering. And I was like, I'll try my hand at it, fine. And with all of the options, they had a marine science option with it. And I was like, okay. So, I studied bioacoustics in Bald Head Creek with a geophysicist professor from NC State, and kind of realized that I was able to mesh like marine and geology. So that's what I'm doing now. So my marine science concentration is actually geology. So I'm getting a huge slam of geology with what I'm studying. But yeah, I mean, I've had great professors at Wake Tech. I went to GSA with Miss Miller and Miss Rollins. And they were kind enough to let me shove my poster next to theirs and kind of present as well. So yeah.
Yeah, if only we could get out there that geology is more than just rocks. I feel like the field would just expand so much for people.
Yeah.
I too kind of started off kind of going off what Miss Miller said too, is I started off just wanting to be a marine biologist, and happened to take a class in geology on a total whim because my roommate was taking it. I was like, sure, I'll take it. I don't care. I like science, and I fell in love with it. And I saw I didn't really care about the critters in the ocean so much. It was like the waves and, the ocean and currents. And so maybe at least today we'll open up just what geology is and what all it encompasses. And it doesn't have to just be about one thing.
All righty. And Mr. Yance?
Absolutely, thanks. So while I did not get a degree, kind of in the environmental sciences, geology area, definitely focused more so on social sciences throughout my undergraduate career. I have also always kind of been someone who wants to spend time outdoors. Same thing with, Boy Scouts and Eagle Scouts and camping trips. I spent 7 years working at a summer camp throughout my time as a high school student and an undergraduate in college that had a very big focus on environmental science education, particularly that of marine sciences. It was located on the Neuse River here in North Carolina. So have always kind of had, and I grew up on the coast. I grew up in Wilmington by the beach. So I've always been the type of person to enjoy being outside and appreciating all the different wildlife or the various, kind of outdoor areas that we have access to. And that, over time definitely developed more into going to college and taking environmental focused courses alongside my communication curriculum to learn about the threat of climate change and become more educated on how serious this is. And then in combination with that, learning about all the various things that we kind of talked about that we can do every day to minimize our carbon footprint and to have a positive impact on our local environment and our local communities around us. So it's been an awesome experience being able to combine those two passions of mine, one of working with students interested in bettering themselves through higher education as an admissions professional, and now being in the College of Natural Resources here at State, of course, focusing on various programs that have a lot of involvement in the environment, in the community, and in our natural resources community. So it's been a really nice combination of growing up with a big passion for the outdoors and for our environment, and now helping students, of course, take that leap to become an undergraduate studying those things, and then of course have a high impact as becoming a scientist in those areas with their careers moving forward.
Thank you. It looks like we have a question in the chat box from one of our participants. So anyone can answer. If you all haven't answered this, what does a normal day look like for you? So any of our panelists can answer it this time.
I mean, I can answer that from a student side of it, at least. So since I transferred to NC State actually this past fall, so I'm kind of in a weird in between that I'm a junior, senior kind of thing. So I don't have quite a full year left, but I won't be graduating this year. And it's very marine and geology heavy, which I'm so excited about. You know, I took all of my basics at Wake Tech and got my associates. And so what's been really awesome is that like I'm in a geological oceanography class right now. I'm taking coastal environments. I'm actually getting scuba certified through NC State. So yeah, you know, unfortunately our classes are still online for this semester. We don't go in person until this fall. So my scuba class is pretty much my only seated class. But yeah, it's just, you know, now that I'm getting kind of into the good nitty gritty, you know, courses of my major, it's really fun. I'm having I'm taking higher level classes. I think all of my classes are above the 300 level now. And it's just really awesome. I actually, for my finals, instead of just taking tests, I have like 3 lightning talks that I have to do. So yeah, but it's really awesome. I'm really enjoying it.
What about you, Dr. Pilot, since you're one of our professionals representing the EPA? What's kind of your normal day-to-day life look like?
Oh, thank you. By the way, I can't get to the chat box, so Mia, I'll send you some links and maybe you could post them for me.
Okay.
So my day, I do a lot of GIS work, Geographic Information Systems, and that GIS would be my one take-home point if you want to get a job at EPA or going forward in geology. Going forward, all geologists are going to have skills in GIS. So on a good day, I'm doing GIS, making story maps, making web applications that help my colleagues in their subject matter areas do their work better because they can use geographic information systems to integrate all kinds of diverse information. Natural landscape information plus socioeconomic, demographic information. That's a good day. And a really good day is me turning satellite images into information. But a lot of days I'm doing paperwork and managing my team, kind of guiding them in the research that we're pursuing. EPA is an interesting beast in that we have research, we also have a regulatory aspect, we protect the environment, and it's very dynamic politically, I guess I would say. So yeah, so I do emails, spreadsheets, PowerPoint presentations, I write manuscripts, create proposals to get funding to do research, work with colleagues at universities and other federal agencies, and most of it centers on mapping and mapping sciences.
Thank you. What about you, Mr. Youngs? Do you have anything to add?
Sure thing. Yeah. Well, of course, my kind of day to day is much more focused on just kind of the higher education recruiting side of things. Not so much of a scientist, unfortunately, even though being a part of the College of Natural Resources has made me very jealous of a lot of the awesome things that our current students are doing. But my day to day looks very much so in the general sense of recruiting and all the aspects that go into that. So there's a lot of planning for events. Traditionally, I would be traveling quite a bit, visiting schools like Wake Tech, other community colleges, high schools all around the state and beyond, just to inform students about our programs, build a relationship, and help you understand the ins and outs of our admissions process. And what we can provide for you as a prospective student in the College of Natural Resources at NC State. And then there's also the piece of events. And right now we would be welcoming a lot of our recently admitted students to campus. And unfortunately, of course, we can't host a lot of big on-campus exciting events for those students. So moving that to a virtual standpoint, but of course, educating myself on all of the awesome things that our students, staff, and faculty are doing in their particular fields, whether it's environmental sciences, paper science, engineering, parks, recreation, and tourism management, sustainable materials and technology, and then relaying all of that information to our prospective students to inform them of, hey, here's all the wonderful things that you're going to be able to do during your time as an NC State student. And then, of course, beyond that, moving forward to make a giant impact, in the environment through a variety of different avenues.
Great. Thank you so much. Ms. Miller, we've got a question in our chat box. I think you would probably be really good for this one. The student was asking, what chemistry classes do you recommend a student at Wake Tech to take in order to transfer?
Yeah, excellent question.
And that's a hot topic, I know, for our geology majors.
So Wake Tech only offers 3 geology classes, and that's part of the statewide articulation agreement between the community colleges and the 4-year universities. And I do recommend, if you want to major in geology or a related field, that you take those 3 classes. But obviously, you're going to need more sciences before you transfer. I highly recommend taking chemistry 151 and 152 when you're at Wake Tech. You'll be in small classroom with great instructors, and chances are when you transfer to the 4-year university, you're going to need chemistry anyway. And so taking that at Wake Tech is a really good way to take the class and get some good personal attention. It also satisfies the sequence requirement that you need for your associate in science degree. So that's one that I often recommend to students, is taking the chemistry sequence. Also recommended courses would be physics, because there's a good chance that that's going to be required after you transfer. So again, great to take it at Wake Tech before you go. And then also work on your math courses at Wake Tech. Look at the schools you want to transfer to, see what kinds of math requirements they have, and work towards those requirements and get some of those under your belt, maybe even all of them under your belt at Wake Tech before you transfer. Those are all things that are going to help you in your major, and keep you in that STEM, the science and math sort of realm before you transfer.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. I'll go ahead and ask the next question. So this is for everyone as well. What are the benefits of having a career in geology? And anybody can start.
I'm sorry, Stephanie, I kind of missed that question. I think my Wi-Fi kind of jumped out for a second.
Oh, no problem. The question is, what are the benefits to having a career in geology?
I'll go. Hi, Emily's dog. Yeah, because you get to learn about where you live. We live in the solar system. Why not get to know it? Geologists are really fun. After pandemic, a bunch of strangers will get together to go on a field trip, and you get in a van, and after a couple of turns, you're all good buddies, and at lunchtime, everybody's just friendly. Geoscience people are very friendly and interesting, I find. Yeah, that's it.
I'll jump in too, and I'll say that a lot of, we've already seen that geology, or the word we actually like to use now is geoscience, because it is so broad. A lot of it does cover so many topics, and they're interesting and also challenging, but challenging in a good way, challenging to where you don't ever have a boring day. There's a lot of really interesting problems that geoscientists like to work on and try to solve. And some of them are related to resources. That's come up a lot today, but another sort of big challenge is hazards, understanding hazards, geological hazards, and protecting people from those hazards. And so just wonderful opportunities to to really work on some big challenges for humans.
Thank you. Mia, would you like to move on to the next question?
Yes. All righty. So what skills do you believe are essential for students who are interested in geology, Ms. Miller?
The most important skill is curiosity, being curious about the world around you, and you want to ask questions and try and find out answers to those. Anybody who has curiosity can be a scientist. I already talked a little bit about some of the coursework, and I did mention the word math, which sometimes can strike fear into the hearts of people. But honestly, math is an important tool in any kind of science. So try not to be afraid of it. Try to learn how to use it as a tool. And depending on what area of geoscience you go into, there's certainly aspects that require less math and some that require more math. And so you can sort of pick a pathway that fits your skill set a little better. Other than that, there's so many different areas of geoscience that there's a lot of different skill sets. And so you can sort of find a niche for yourself depending on what your personal strengths are. I think would be a good way of saying it. It's a very broad area to hit on a lot of people's skills. There are even areas where more artistic bent folks can really find a good career.
Thank you for that. And Ms. Herman, I have a question for you. Kind of tell us how you balance school, clubs, and coursework in your personal life. How do you do it all?
Well, it's a day by day learning experience, honestly. I also work part-time as well as going to school. So I try really hard to have a really good work-life balance, whether that's just, trying to get my homework done and then going to the park for 10 minutes. Or, my dog has made it really great to have a good break in between homework and classes. Like Dr. Palant was saying earlier, I'm in a GIS class currently. And, all of the stuff that I'm taking can get pretty stressful. So it's nice to just go outside and just kind of enjoy like life for a good second, if that makes sense. And thankfully, like I don't work a very stressful job. I work at REI. So again, I'm surrounded by people who love the outdoors. So we'll try to get together. We went hammocking last Sunday. We'll talk about school while we're doing it, but it just makes it so much easier because you realize that a lot of other people are kind of going through what you're going through. So it makes, I don't know how to put that into words. It makes you feel a lot better, because I think when you first transfer or first start your studies, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm the only one doing this. My hours are crazy. How am I going to get all this homework done? And then you talk to other people for your major or people that have the same interests in you. And you're like, hey, we're all doing this together. It's fine.
Thank you for that insight. Mr. Yance, do you just want to talk a little bit more about the College of Natural Resources and some of the opportunities?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you so much, Mia. So one thing, of course, to be aware of, I understand, that this session is, got more of the geology, of course, kind of framework or background as it relates to Earth Day. And as you can see, geology obviously is one of the majors that we have here at NC State. It is within our College of Sciences. So there's a few programs that, could be in natural resources, but also are in sciences like geology or like marine sciences. But we also have a variety of programs in our college where you could still concentrate on such things. But we have 9 different academic majors in our college that are all more so focused around environmental sciences, sustainability, and community-based kind of approaches to the environment, like a parks, recreation, tourism management. We have environmental technology and management, forest management, natural resources, environmental sciences, I already mentioned our kind of engineering focused programs like paper science and sustainable materials and technology. So there's a lot more programs in our majors that obviously are involved in the outdoors, obviously are involved in sustainability and preserving our natural resources through a couple of different avenues. So if you're interested, of course, still in geology specifically, that major is available at NC State through the College of Sciences here. But maybe if you wanted to get a program like our most broad program, which is a BS in environmental science, that program allows for our students to choose their own concentration, in which we call that a focal area. So a lot of majors have concentrations you can choose from, but environmental sciences allows you to pretty much build your own concentration. There are 15 flexible focal area electives that are built into that curriculum. And a lot of students do things similar to focusing on geology or focusing on marine sciences or really a lot of different areas. And then you work with an advisor to kind of cater your curriculum to taking classes outside of your built out environmental sciences curriculum to just expand upon your focal area and, of course, get an education that is very customizable to you as a student and to you as to what you want to do career-wise. So, I'm always here to be able to answer more questions about our various majors. But of course, a great resource is to check out the CNR website, College of Natural Resources website, to take a deeper look into our 9 different academic programs and see if those are some of the areas you might want to go into as an undergraduate, moving forward as a transfer or something along those lines.
All righty, thank you. I also wanted to mention that I posted something from Dr. Pilot in the chat box. Did you want to speak a little bit further on that, Dr. Pilot, what I posted in the chat box?
I guess feel free to contact me at that email address if you want to follow up on anything. I put a little bit of information about USA Jobs is the conduit to find jobs at EPA and other federal agencies. Let's see. I put the Carl Sagan's pale blue dot there as an iconic expression of why we need to protect this planet, the pale blue dot. So yeah, that's all about those comments. And I think it's because I can't get the chat box because of a glitch. I just had a new router installed 15 minutes ago, and it shows up, Google says, yeah, that could be a problem. So there you go. You learned something.
Thank you. I'm glad you were able to email it, and I posted it and shared it with everyone. So thank you.
Well, maybe going off of some of the things the resource you posted then, Dr. Plant, can you tell us a little bit more about the career opportunities that are available at the EPA?
Sure. So our mission is to protect human health and the environment. So any career path that supports that is viable. And it's science, engineering, math, of course, physics, chemistry, all those traditional disciplines. I'll echo Cameron's comment about environmental science being a very good background for EPA. But we also have social scientists, psychologists, business people, geographers, because it's an integrated, the environment is inherently integrated. So we have to get experts from multiple domains to come together to tackle these really difficult problems. So career opportunities, EPA has not been hiring for a while. We're about somewhere between 16 and 18,000 people nationally. But lately I think we have been hiring a little bit because there's a lot of gray-haired people like me getting ready to retire. So I think that's good. Get yourself on USA Jobs. Let's see. I'll reiterate that GIS, anybody in environmental sciences is going to need GIS background. And I just can't imagine anybody not liking maps, but the mapping sciences are so interesting because they're part quantitative, but part art, right? Because they're so visual. And I'm used to using the term STEM, but today I heard this term STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And I'm excited that that's happening too. So I'm not sure if I'll just mention what's the most fulfilling part of my job. I think that was one of the prompts. I don't know if we've got to that yet, but since I'm yakking, I'm really honored to support the mission to protect human health and the environment, and I'm also honored to be a public servant working for the federal government. I'm part of an enterprise that's trying to make the world a healthier place, and EPA's science is used around the world because we have the resources in the US to tackle some of these problems, figure out what the levels of exposure are that the human body can accommodate. And I just love working with the bright, dedicated people in my line of work. Thanks.
Thank you. So Professor Rollins, or Professor Miller, let me ask you this question. I just called myself out because I just want to answer it so bad. Since this is Earth Day and we're talking about geology, and we have students who tend to come into our classes and really they just think all we're going to do is study rocks the whole semester. Can you just tell some of our students who are inquiring about what a geology class is like what are some of those main topics that we cover?
Sure, that's a great question. The first geology class that any student would take at Wake Tech is Geology 111, which is just called Geology, but you could also call it Introduction to Geology. And this is the one that at universities they joke about calling rocks for jocks. But it's so much more than rocks. We do learn about minerals, and we learn about the 3 types of rocks: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. But we also learn about things like rivers and shoreline processes. We learn about volcanoes, earthquakes, the history, a little bit about the history of the Earth. I personally like to talk a little bit about North Carolina's geological history, even though it's super complicated. And what else do we talk about? A little bit about climate, glaciers. I always throw in one lecture at the end on geology of the other planets. And so we do cover a broad range of topics in that introductory course. Once students have completed that course, they're eligible to take either of our other courses. Geology 113 is historical geology. I personally don't teach that one, but it is a more in-depth study of the history of the Earth itself. So it's looking at fossils, the remains of biological critters, plants that have existed through time on Earth, but it's also a look at how the Earth itself has changed over time, how the continents and oceans have changed over time, how mountains have built and then been eroded. So it's really trying to get an understanding of the deeper history of our planet. And then the third class that we offer is Geology 230, which is called Environmental Geology. I do teach that. Ms. Rollins teaches it too, which is why she wanted to answer this one. I like to describe that class as how geology affects society and how society affects geology. It's very much a two-way street, and I'm actually teaching the class this semester online, and we study a lot about resources, mineral resources, energy, water resources. We study pollution, but we also spend a lot of the semester studying hazardous processes and how human activities also affect hazardous processes, like how, say building on a slope can increase your landslide hazards, and topics like that. And so what I find with that particular class is a lot of the specific topics we cover are similar to what we cover in that introductory course, but we go into them in a much greater depth. And so students get a chance to really explore some of the societal issues surrounding some of the basic processes they learned in that introductory course. All 3 are loads of fun, I think. And they all involve lab, which labs are always the hands-on fun part of class, and all of our classes have required labs. So if you are even slightly interested in geology, even if you don't want to major in it, I would recommend taking more of these classes because they really are fun, and they tend to be the second or 113 and 230 tend to be smaller classes too, so you have lots of good discussion time, which is lots of fun too. So I like talking about them too.
I know. It's like you got to bite your tongue, right? Because there's just so much fun stuff to talk about. And Emily, I mean, she went through Wake Tech, so she, took those courses that we have. And I would love for you, Emily, to expand on what NC State has to offer as far as those kind of science courses. What can students expect to take maybe there?
Yeah, for sure. So I did take all 3 of the geology courses at Wake Tech, and I think it prepared me so much for what we have to offer at State. So like Mr. Yallens was saying, there are so many different majors in natural resources, but also in our science college as well. So just with marine science, you can actually pick one of 5 concentrations. So I happen to be doing geology, but you could do biological oceanography, chemistry, geology, meteorology, or even physics. So if you're, not sure about what you want to do, you can kind of just throw it all in the mix like I'm doing and kind of, pick anything from the bunch. And if you're doing a Bachelor of Science in the Natural Resources College, you can also do a concentration in marine and coastal resources. We offer so much. I'm actually in a club right now that's just like a marine science club, and it's new. This is only, I think, the 2nd semester that we've been operating. And we have a bunch of students at our CMAS location in Morehead City. So that's our Center for Marine Sciences and Technology. And we coordinate with the students there and also here in Raleigh, and we do cleanups. So we'll go to Lake Johnson and pick up trash. We'll go on hikes together and, kind of anything basic. So when I first transferred, I took just a basic, I would say that it was a really good mix of like an intro to geology class and then like Miss Miller's class, environmental geology, and so I was kind of frustrated when I first was in it, because I was like, man, I just learned all of this and I'm having to take it. But I was so prepared for everything, and I think that's what I was most worried about transferring, was being behind or not having the right skills to do any of these classes. But just the 3 classes, it doesn't seem like a lot, but just the 3 classes that Wake Tech offers made me feel so much better about what I'm studying and what I'm majoring in. And I actually, geology-wise, took a structural geology class last semester. And I would say by far that's the hardest class I've ever taken. It was so interesting, though. I had a really great professor who's from—
We'd all agree. We're all nodding. Yes, that is hard.
That was the hardest lab I've ever done. The lecture material was so cool. It was really awesome it was really easy to follow along with. And then the lab, oh my gosh, it was harder than like math classes I've taken and whatever. And this was all online. This was as soon as COVID started. So I didn't have a partner to work with. They were just kind of like, hey, here you go, do this by yourself. But definitely like the coolest geology class I've taken so far. For my final project, we did the Pantheon Fosse. I always pronounce it wrong. So we were literally studying structures on different planets and Mars and Venus, and looking at how you can use different technology to study geology everywhere, so and now, especially with my major, like I learn a lot about seafloor spreading and tectonics. And so that's kind of what I do with mixing marine science and geology. And I meant to mention it earlier, but I completely forgot. I did the NASA program that Wake Tech kind of shoved at me through one of my math classes. And so I did a program with NASA that was specifically for community college students. So unfortunately it was supposed to be, the second part was supposed to be in person. So I was going to go to Langley and spend a week there and participate in an engineering contest. But we ended up doing it all online, but it was still such an awesome experience. They offer it every semester. So whether you're engineering, math, you don't have to be majoring in anything like that to do this program. I wrote papers about lunar in situ resources, how we would make resources on different planets with lessening our payload. And then for our final project, we actually designed a program to Mars. And this was so cool because this was right before, all of the awesome Mars missions that NASA is doing right now. So it was, getting us more excited. And I have a little NASA polo now, and they sent me a pin. So, I get to nerd out on that now. But yeah, highly, highly recommend that. And it's just, I always tell people that are transferring, or that are even just, in my major and doing what I'm doing, throw yourself at every opportunity. Even if you think that it's not going to be worth your time, you make so many connections. I know most of the professors in my department now. I'm constantly sending them emails like, hey, can I slide into your lab? Can I work for you? I'm always bombarding people with that stuff. And I definitely got that kind of push from the internship I did with Wake Tech. I was like, oh, okay, so geoscientists are all super cool. They're super chill. So, the geophysicist I worked with, the first day I showed up for my internship, I was like really nervous. I wore something really nice, and he just showed up in like a fishing shirt and cargo shorts. And he's like, what's up? We're going to do some research. So, I would say that everybody in this field and kind of like the broad geoscience field, they're just so welcoming, and like you never have to feel like you should be worried to ask any questions or that you don't know anything, because one of my professors actually that I took chemistry with, he said the more you learn, the less you know. And I think that's so, so true. The more classes I'm taking, the more I know absolutely nothing, and it just makes me so excited to learn more and so excited to see what's out there and get ready for grad school and have more jobs and internships. So it's been awesome.
Wow, you've had such a great experience, and I'm so excited for you, Emily, and see where you're going to go with this career.
Yeah.
I put a little plug in there in the chat, because you were, plugging some of these great programs with NASA, and, we had our Geopath internship. We also have what's called our START internship, where we have undergraduate research available to anyone in STEM, and you can have any GPA and any interest and apply for it. And like what Emily is saying is, you should apply for it all. Go for it. You don't know what's going to help increase your interest in something. And I've put this plug to follow us at Wake Tech STEM, because I post stuff about it all the time. So I do all the social media for our STEM, for our division, and all of these opportunities that come through, these internships, jobs that come available, all the way down to just what students here at Wake Tech are doing and how you can get involved. I post that on there for you. So that's a great way just to stay abreast of everything that's going on. It's that one place. So, Mr. Yance, I think I have a question for you, since we're kind of on this idea of, Emily going to NC State and whatnot. I know that a lot of students are thinking about, going to college this fall. A lot of people kind of wrapping up all those application deadlines that are coming up. What is one of the best ways that students can be competitive when they're applying to NC State? Because it's hard to get into NC State now. What do we need to do to get in there?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Thank you for bringing that up. So, from my experience working in our admissions office, and of course now specialized in C&R, the transfer process, from my knowledge is pretty, it all depends on specific requirements that we've been talking about as it relates to getting into NC State. And I'm sure all other four-year institutions in the UNC system around North Carolina have similar requirements. But of course, I can speak to those as it relates to NC State. And they are all very clearly listed on our transfer website. I don't think I don't see that I have access to drop a link into the chat or anything right now. But of course, it's very simple to hop on Google, Google NC State transfer or something along those lines. And you'll be able to see what we have listed as recommendations for competitive applicants. And that's just a nice way to say requirements, really. So you look at that list and you'll be able to see the GPA requirement along with specific course requirements that are necessary for each individual major. For example, in the College of Natural Resources, depending on the major that you're applying to, the GPA requirement can be anywhere from, I believe, a 2.4 for some of our majors up to, I think, a 3.2 for maybe our engineering major. And then there are a variety of required courses. At the bare minimum, for any of our majors, students have to have an English composition course completed and also a college level math of some kind. And then you're even more competitive, and honestly, it's inching closer and closer to being more of a requirement for our C&R majors of having some of those classes that have already been mentioned, like a chemistry, like a biology, or like a physics. And in any of our programs, those are going to be courses you have to take anyway. So it is nice to go ahead and knock them out so that you can be obviously be more competitive with those courses, and then be able to concentrate more so on your major specific classes once you potentially arrive at NC State. And then something that I did not mention, which of course is kind of the first thing that you definitely have to transfer, is having at least 30 transferable credit hours. So that's a big piece as well. So having, at least a full year of college curriculum, whether those are courses you may have taken in high school at a community college, AP credit, that counts as well. Obviously, in addition to whatever it is you might be taking at Wake Tech to then transfer over to NC State. So another big, thing when it comes to the transfer process is communicating with the admissions office and communicating with the college representative at NC State that you're interested in transferring to. So, we have a College of Sciences recruiter as well that you could reach out to if you were wanting to transfer into geology and marine sciences, or just bio or chem or something along those lines. If you wanted to go into a CNR major, of course, you want to reach out to myself or our director of recruitment and student engagement to just build a relationship and have a better understanding of exactly what it is that you need individually to be the most competitive applicant as possible. And of course, admissions are the folks that read those applications and end up making those decisions. So having a relationship and having a conversation with them about your particular situation, what classes you have, what your GPA is looking like. And of course, since you are applying to a specific major, it's very important that that the admissions committee has an idea of, how passionate are you for this major? And that's where kind of your writing portions of your application come into play, of making it clear, here's why I want to go into geology, or here's why I want to go into environmental technology and management. And here's the things that I've done, whether it's in high school or at the community college level, that make me a good candidate for that program. Obviously, in addition to those hardline requirements of specific courses. So take a look at our website. The transfer site has all of that information detailed very clearly so that you know exactly what you have to have. But it's also very important to make sure that you communicate with representatives at the college level and at the admissions university level to just make sure you're exactly where you need to be before you apply for admission.
Thank you so much. So, Dr. Blount, so I'm going to kind of ask you something similar to then. So what do you think is going to make people competitive besides making sure we all know GIS? Which I always tell my students that actually on one of the first couple of days of class, take a GIS class.
Oh, good. So how to be competitive at EPA or in geology?
Yes, to get a career there or a job there.
So you need some good technical skills, of course, and just the basics help, and environmental science, but also work on your soft skills. Can you work well with others? Understand your personality type a little bit, and that will help you if you're introvert or extrovert. Understanding that can help guide how you work with others. Public speaking is probably a good course to have a little bit of at some point. Writing skills are important, being able to express yourself concisely, briefly, directly. Being able to read the room, or being able to have to read between the lines maybe. Say you're in a meeting and there's a certain conversation going on, but maybe there's a subtext or a deeper meaning. I mean, this is a little vague, but all those things seem to help. And then I guess finally, EPA has so many potential careers that, it's going to depend on where you are. But as a geoscientist at EPA, I think you need to have the basic skill set, be willing to learn, play well with others, express yourself, be fun, and have some understanding of what EPA's issues are and what EPA's mission and constraints are. So we are bound by the work we do is authorized by Congress. So the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, things like that. Those are the regulatory statutes we use to do our work. And you don't have to read the statutes, but but it's important to know what our domain of operation is. And actually, that little blue dot, everything except the structural geology. So everything at the surface of the Earth is potential for us. We have people working on atmospheric chemistry, surface water, groundwater, surface mapping. Yeah, so mostly human activities at the surface of the Earth, and that's where we focus our efforts. So I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, I think it really helps to clarify too that there's just so many different opportunities that are available at the EPA, and honestly, with geoscience degree in general, it doesn't pigeonhole you, I don't think, like some degrees do. You're able to explore so many different fields, just because you started maybe going into sedimentology, studying river systems doesn't mean you always have to do that, because you have such a great encompassing background of things.
That's absolutely right. And I forgot to mention one thing. EPA has something called the Pathways program. I'm not sure it's in the links I put in the chat box, but do look up EPA and Pathways, because it's a way that you can get, I think you start as kind of a student intern at EPA, but then can graduate to being a full-time employee. It can be difficult to get into the federal service, but if it suits you, it's a wonderful place to be. And so yeah, look up Pathways, and I'm happy to chat further offline.
I'm going to jump in real quick. So Pathways is a really great option. I have a lot of friends. I actually have a friend that works at NASA now that she started as a Pathways intern. Pretty much any government, okay, I won't say any, that's a little stretch, but most of the government positions out there have a Pathways internship or have some sort of even paid student internship. So NASA has them, and that's kind of the next step from the program that I did. You can also look at the National Park Service. They have so many opportunities in the summer and like any semester you're looking for, and it's all of these really great paid positions. So there's national parks. There's also, I really recommend the A&M job board. It's all for sciences. So whether you're doing parks or you're doing environmental science or biology, chemistry, the A&M job board will post actual positions that they're looking for full-time or part-time, but they also post internships. So I always stress that. I'm always scouring it for positions. I always send it to my friends, stuff like that. But yeah, and also if you don't think that any place is hosting an internship, just email them. 9 times out of 10, people love students that are so enthusiastic or, have that drive to look for positions. I emailed the Johnson water facility, the EM Johnson facility out in North Raleigh. And I was like, hey, do you guys do anything for students? And they're like, you know what? We actually do. We have a high school and a college program. So it really just takes having, some guts almost and just emailing people.
And that goes along with what you were saying, Dr. Pylon, about those soft skills of putting yourself out there and just going for it. I mean, summer's coming up, so you have the whole summer to look at all these different options available to you as far as internships, and those are all great ones, Emily.
I just want to throw in, I sent Mia a link to our interns at EPA page, and also that I've worked with volunteer interns from high school and undergraduate levels over the years, and it's unpaid. It's not an official internship, but I think, as Emily was just saying, you can contact people and say, hey, is there some way I can help you over the summer, helping you with the research?
It looks like we're about out of time. Did anybody have any final thoughts before we wrapped up? Any questions from any of our students joining us? I think Mia is working on some of those links, and we'll put those in the chat box if anyone wants to stay on for a couple of minutes so you can get access to those links. And we are recording this, and I'll be sharing it on social media at Wake STEM on Twitter and on Facebook next week. And then I'll also be putting up the recording within our virtual STEM center, so you can access it in either place. I think Mia's got a couple of links up there for us for the EPA.
Yes, I just shared the link. Thank you for emailing it to me.
Thank you.
I'll throw in one more quick plug for Wake Tech. If you are interested in more information about geology careers, if you're taking a geology class right now, reach out to the instructor you have, because it's something that we're all really passionate about. If you're not currently taking one, feel free to reach out to me or to Ms. Rollins. We've worked a lot in the past with students, helping them with career questions and transfer questions and that sort of thing. And we'd all be willing to help you out with any questions you have.
One final thing for me, I highly recommend taking calculus before you transfer. The science majors actually require it to even get in. Just take it, just get it over with. Oh my gosh. I'm actually going to be taking Calc 2 this summer at Wake Tech. It's just, yeah, the classes are so much smaller. You're not going to be stuck in some, 100 student room with a professor. And even in this last case, I took calculus this past semester, and since it was online, the lectures were from 2016. Just get it over with. Just take it.
Dr. Powell, did you have something to say?
Yeah, passion. You can see there's a lot of passion in the geoscience folks here, and I just encourage young folks to follow their passion if they can, because it can make your job so rewarding. The other thing I tell undergraduates sometimes is the fun begins in grad school. And all I mean by that is that when you're an undergraduate, you're taking so many different classes, very diverse, and it can be kind of hard on the brain sometimes. And in graduate school, then you're able to focus on some narrower topics, and that can be, I just wanted to make that awareness to folks, that's all.
So I think we're about out of time. Thank you so much, everyone who joined us today, to our panelists. Y'all gave us such great insight, and to all of our other students and people who have joined us today. Mia, thank you for helping to organize this session. I was excited to be a part of it. Thanks so much.
Thank you for partnering with me. Thank you for our awesome panelists and all our participants who joined us.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day.